All right, Oliver. Mommy, come see Oliver. Renee pulls her mother through the crowd of early arrivals to a pale blonde child hunched over scattered piles of paper. Remember I told you about his rabbits he's always drawing? Renee knows Oliver won't look up when Mrs. Willens says hello. She also understands that he's not merely drawing rabbits, that he has entered Shashahama, his favorite fantasy island where the inhabitants have begun to organize their story. Bits and pieces of it are strewn across the table. Shashama is more real to Oliver than we are. On one of Oliver's tiny squares, Mother Rabbit pushes Billy Bunny in a stroller on several other scraps. Richard Rabbit blows up a balloon and bounces a ball or rides on a unicycle. The larger the paper, the larger the story. The page in progress is nearly easel size. Segment by segment, Oliver's marker speeds through a fast-paced narrative in which the rabbits watch each other as Oliver never seems to watch us. Ordinary small task holds no interest for Oliver. However, if one asks him about any of his rabbits, he will unfold the story complete to its final detail. No interruption allowed. The children and I watch and listen and wait. Mrs. Willens will soon discover what we already know, that after the calm will come a crisis of despair, bringing classroom life to a halt. Renee admires Oliver. She was first to copy his rabbits, even before she fell in love with Leo Leone's mice. It was she who noticed that Oliver uses one color to a page, and he will not answer questions that begin with why. Why the rabbits all the time blue today, Oliver? She asked one day, sitting beside him watching him draw. Receiving no answer, she rephrased her question. Why you only using a blue marker? Still, there was no answer. Whereupon Renee announced, Oliver don't like when you ask him why something. Months later, a psychologist would tell me the same thing. But Renee figured it out first. Tell my mommy, how is Sweetheart doing today? Oliver, Renee says, and his response comes quickly. It's Sweetheart's birthday. And his response, it's Sweetheart's birthday. Sweetheart and her brother Richard are the central characters in Shashamal. Good and bad things happen there, but the story usually begins with Sweetheart and Richard are happy today. In the brief time it takes Renee and her mother to pull up chairs on either side of Oliver, the words have begun to flow in waves of precise images. His voice is steady and clear, with no hint of the coming explosion. I should have warned Mrs. Willens, who hangs on Oliver's every word. Then Mother Rabbit puts a bow on Sweetheart tied around her ears, and Richard puts on a new striped jacket. Nothing bad has happened yet in the story or at the table, but I feel my tension mounting. Bruce, across the table, is half listening to Oliver and half trying to preempt Mrs. Willens' attention. He wants her to admire his dangerous volcano, which is about to erupt as the purple lava bursts from in larger and larger arcs. A spot of color lands on Oliver's paper. Oops, sorry, Bruce says, holding his breath, but it's too late. Oliver shrieks and howls as if in pain. Ah, no fair, no fair, he hates me, Bruce hates me. Ah, don't look at me, get away, I hate you, I hate you. Frantically, Oliver swipes at everything within reach. Markers, crayons, papers, and scissors go flying. His siren-like screams increase in volume as he pushes over his chair and runs for cover behind the carpentry bench. I wish the corner that he always chooses were not so close to the door. His piercing wail can be heard down the corridor, past the third-grade classroom, almost to the library. Earlier in the school year, people would run into the hall, fearing the worst, but now they recognize the sounds of Oliver escaping to his hiding place. Mrs. Willens is visibly shaken. It's okay, Mommy. That's his mouse hideout. We sit silently, waiting for his sorrow to cease. No longer do we chase after him with soothing words and distractions. No, 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 get away, he warns. Whoever comes near, he begs to be left alone to handle himself. This unexplainable panic that arises out of the most commonplace incidents. A drop of paint on his shirt, a misunderstanding on the playground. They won't let me, they hate me, I'm sorry, 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 no fair, sorry, isn't fair, sorry, sorry, sorry. We didn't say it, the children defend themselves, but nothing will help calm him except to escape from us. It can't be somewhere else, Renee states whenever the subject comes up, because that's where he goes, so that has to be his mouse hideout. Sometimes she is the one at the workbench who has to stop hammering until Oliver is ready to abandon his retreat. Renee named the place after we read Frederick, and the desperate withdrawal no longer seemed so frightening when the corner became Oliver's mouse hideout. No one has blamed Bruce, but he is almost in tears. I don't hate Oliver. I didn't say that. He tells Mrs. Willens, who quickly puts his arm around him. Of course you didn't, honey, she murmurs, darting troubled looks at Nisha and me. Don't worry, Mama, Renee assures her again. He'll be back soonest he can. Mrs. Willens tries to smile, but the frown will not leave her face. I am about to come over with whatever explanation I can manage, when suddenly Oliver is back, picking up his paper and putting his finger on the exact place where the interruption occurred. Except for his flushed face and blotchy neck, all is as before. I'm sorry I spoiled your picture, Bruce says, but for Oliver the event is over. He resumes his narrative in an only slightly less steady voice. The rabbits come with presents for the birthday, Bunny. His finger follows the procession of rabbits, accounting for every item. Lulu brings a carrot, Betsy brings a striped ball, and Edward Bunny has a lollipop in his paw. Then a bad thing happens. A fierce eagle picks up Sally Bunny in his talons, and she screams and screams. Does anyone notice that Sally Bunny's mouth looks curiously like Oliver's when he screams? Not once does Oliver change his expression or look up at his audience when he tells its story. It's as if we were not there. Mother Bunny hears her child crying and flies up to the nest and pushes out the eagle. Don't dare steal my baby. Then she takes Sally to the birthday, and they give Sweetheart a book. Now Oliver does something quite extraordinary. He takes Renee's hand and puts it on the miniature book in Sally's Bunny's paw. Renee brings her face close to the paper and smiles. He has drawn a tiny mouse on the book, and above it, the letter F. Thank you, Oliver, Renee says, showing her mother the picture of Frederick. Guess what, Mommy? Oliver is reminding me of Leo Leone now. Why is that, Renee? Like, see, he keeps making rabbits, and see, like, every rabbit knows just what to do. And, like, he's not worrying about other stuff, but he be thinking only about rabbits, thinking his rabbits all the time. Except for now, because Frederick got on his mind, because, see, Oliver knows how much I like Frederick. Mrs. Willens studies her child's earnest face, then looks at those sitting around the table. Finally, she rests her eyes on Oliver, his head lowered, concentrating on a new picture. I think Oliver is more like Frederick, she says, and the rest of you are the friendly mice who watch over him, waiting to hear his stories. Oliver has been given many labels, but never such literary ones. He is removed from the humdrum of psychological categories and accepted as an artist who concentrates on one thing at a time while we play the role of audience and supporters. How easily Leo Leone brings us together. Even Oliver can't escape the net.